Welcome back. This is the third episode of this series. We're again just trying to give you a taste of development here at Code Sagas so that you guys get an idea of what it's like to see if this is what you want to pursue before you go drop the big monies at some university's boot camp or some big monies at some university at some building in downtown San Diego or San Francisco or San Antonio or I don't know any other San cities, but I'm sure there's more. So, what we're going to do today is, again, we're going over more HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what we're doing, going a little bit deeper, and building on what we've known. Now, our homework last time is what does HTML stand for? What does CSS stand for? And if you did some Googling, and you didn't find it, I would be worried for you because I'm pretty sure if I just Google HTML and like search it, Google's like the answer. Same with CSS. Now, the big reveal, HTML, hypertext markup language. CSS, cascading style sheet. Their names mean things, and in your career, it will be important to get to a point where you understand it. But today, like, it's just HTML, it's just CSS. They're just two separate pieces of this three-legged table that is fragile that we build the entire internet on. So, or at least the front end piece of it. So, again, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, what we're going to do is move back to our app, step into the next phase of learning another piece of HTML that's pretty important, learning another piece of CSS, another kind of like building on it, learning some more things. And then we're going to jump into some JavaScript. And after today, the amount of HTML and CSS that we do will start to kind of take a back seat, and JavaScript is going to really start stepping up and being the main focus of this course. And I'm excited about that because literally in less than an hour of you learning to code, you've deployed a site. You've learned a bit of HTML and CSS to at least just get something to show up. And we're diving into JavaScript, where most boot camps take 2 weeks or more to get you there. But we're getting there right now so that you can get a good taste of it before you commit to something that you find out isn't right for you. So I hope it is right for you. I enjoy it. I think it's really fun. I think everyone should learn to do it, but not everyone can make a career out of it. I'll be honest about that. So let's jump into that and let's see what we can do today with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right, so here's our app where we left off last time. I've got it open up in the other browser. This was the deployed piece. All right, if I come over here to our code sandbox, this is where we left off. All right, so the first thing we're going to do with our HTML is give us the ability to kind of organize it. Now, if all you have is these divs, and you are going to say use these divs to categorize things and structure them because they're divisions, it's kind of their purpose in life is to section things off and make different divisions of things. It might be a little annoying because you may not want them all to look the same. So what's great for us is there's an attribute piece of HTML. So inside, I'm gonna zoom in for us real quick here. So inside here, I'm gonna hit a space. This is on that opening tag. So I'm inside and I've created a space and I'm just type the word class. All right, so and then I'm gonna put an equal sign. I'm gonna do 2 double quotes. Again, with our editor, if I just type one, it'll make the other one for us and put our cursor in the middle. And then I can give it a name, like title. All right, so this is the title of our app. So I gave it a name of title. So let's say I wanted to structure the app in a way that allows us to see everything that's going on. All right, what if I really want to get in here and see this a little bit better? What can I do about that? I want to structure it to start giving it like some better fills. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this div. Well, not going to copy. I'm just going to create another div here. So a div around the input, because this is the area where we get the feedback from the user. Remember that opening angle bracket, the slash, and closing angle bracket with the name in between for the closing tag, and we'll do it again for the button. So they each kind of have their own container. Now, you may not want them to have their own container. You could do it kind of your own way if you wanted, but this is how I'm going to structure mine. Now, as of right now, they all have the purple background, they all have white text, and they all have the same padding, right? They all inherited. This div doesn't just style the first one, it does all of them, right? So let's say that I also want the div to have a font size. Now remember, if I wanted to change the font size or the text size, I would use CSS tricks to Google that. But let's say I want to change that to 40 pixels. Right? That changed technically all of them. It's not affecting our button or our input because they have their own rules, but that's kind of what's going on. Now, let's talk about changing the input and the button, right? Now, the input and the button themselves, I actually kind of want them to have pretty identical styles. And so there's a way for us to do that, and that's with the class. So I'm going to add to the input a class that I'm going to just call action. All right, and I'm going to take this class action lawsuit, funny moment there, and drop it on the button and save it. All right, so now I have this action class. Now I'm going to get rid of the styles for the input and the button, and I'm going to actually use the class in the CSS to be my identifier of how I want to style them. All right, so I'm going to type dot action. So this dot here that I just typed, we zoom in a little bit, that dot, that is saying class. That's saying, hey, in the CSS world, I want to access a class. And then what comes after the dot is the name of the class, which is action. Okay, there's a whole bunch of knowledge right now of that we could go off and spend hours and talk about, like all the different selectors, and we could talk about chaining them together and using them in multiple ways and all that. But for right now, just because we want to keep it simple, we are just talking about that relationship here, right? That I've typed action and we will style these guys. So let's watch this happen. So in here, I'm going to type, let's see, what should we type? Let's type background. I will go down and find that color, and we'll tell it to be white. And so if I save this, you might notice that the button changed. All right, we're gonna say text transform uppercase. Now what's fun about this one is it makes the text uppercase. So the button is uppercase, and if I type in here, it's all uppercase always. Now I want to change the border. The borders are actually, let's change the padding. first, and then we'll change the border. So like when I type in here, it's kind of squished and the button feels squished. And so that inner space, again, remember that was padding. Padding has a couple different ways we can apply rules. I can apply it to all of them, or I can do it side by side. I can also do it top and bottom and left and right. So I'm going to say I want 12 pixels. Nope, sorry. I want 8 pixels on the top and bottom and 12 pixels on the left and right. All right, so because I've supplied 2, it will do the top and bottom and then the left and right. I can also supply 3 and 4, and they have different effects. And if you want a little side homework, and we might run into it eventually, but little side homework stuff could help you learn that one. So there we go. So now if I type in here, it's a little bit more spaced out. Feels a little bit easier to see and read. Okay. I want the color in these, the text color, to be Rebecca purple. So if we save that, now they're purple. And then the last one is the border. Well, there's 2 more. Border. So border is a fun one. We tell it how wide or thick we want to be. I'm going to say 2 pixels. I'm going to say that I want it to be solid, and that I want it to be white. I'm actually going to rearrange some things now that I've got my bearings going. I want the color to be white, and I want the background color to be Rebecca purple. There we go. So now if I type in here, boom. Now there's some other things going on with the input that are kind of weird. Some like interesting like focus things that I can't quite figure out. But hey, it is what it is. Last thing we're gonna do is a border radius. Border hyphen radius. And I'm going to tell it to have a radius of 4 pixels. It just adds a little softness to the corners so they're not so harsh. All right, so now we have a title, we have a place to type some stuff in, and we have a button to do something. It's a pretty good start, all right? And we've made it so that we only had to write the CSS once because of this class. Now I'm going to tell you an acronym you're going to hear a lot in the development world, and it is DRY, D-R-Y. Don't repeat yourself. If I had selected input and selected button, I'd have had this same set of code maybe 2 times to apply it to one spot. So if you find yourself repeating yourself a lot in your code, find a way to dry it up. Find a way to don't repeat yourself, all right? So that's the little bit of CSS we're going to cover today. And now we're going to jump into JavaScript, and things are going to slowly start getting more and more heavy. Now, by the end of our little introduction to JavaScript today, what I would like to do is click on this button, and every time we click it, it runs the console log piece. But in order for us to do that, we have to do a little bit of learning and learn a new concept. So I'm going to create some space here, and we're going to zoom this in just a little bit so that we can focus on what we're typing and see what's going on here. So we're going to create what's called a function. So a function in JavaScript is a collection of lines of code that we can run over and over and over again, because we can just say, hey, do this task. It's like a task with a set of instructions, and it can just go and do it every time we tell it to. So for example, if you have younger siblings, you might have told them, hey, go make me lunch, and they might have ran off and made you lunch because they knew how to make lunch for you. Or you might have told them to do other things. I was a pretty mean older brother and made my younger siblings do lots of things for me. So you might have a roommate, and you're like, hey, make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now they have their own set of instructions of how to do that, but that is a function that we're asking them to perform, right? Or like you might brush your teeth every night. Hopefully you do. And with that, that's a function that you perform, and it has a set of steps that you follow. And so in JavaScript, that's what we have. We have a function that we can provide some steps, and then every time we tell it to do it, then it will follow those steps. So I'm going to type the word function in here, because that's how we say we want to make a function. And you'll know that it's a special word because it went purple or it changed colors for you. All right, so then I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it logger. And then I'm going to write 2 parentheses, which will explain those ones in a little bit, and then 2 curly braces. Now, inside these curly braces, this is where the instructions will go. Now, if you think back a little bit, you might be like, hey, in CSS, we had curly braces. That's where the instructions went on what to style. Maybe you're seeing a connection here. Curly braces, maybe list of instructions to perform. I don't know. Maybe you'll see that. Maybe you won't. I don't know. So you will probably see it. I'm just being facetious. Okay, so we have a logger here that we've created. What I'm going to do is move this guy into the logger. Now that hotkey, in case you're wondering, is I was just pushing the Options key on a Mac or Alt key on a Windows, and you can just move stuff around with your arrow key while holding down that Options key. Now we have this logger function, right? Now you'll remember in our other version when we just ran it, it logged it. So if I save this and we come here to our app and I refresh it, we don't see that, hi, I'm a whatever it said, a site or whatever. Or I'm JavaScript. We don't see that anymore. And it's because when stuff goes into a function, we have to tell it to run the function. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to type the word logger. And then I'm going to put 2 parentheses and our semicolon and save it. And now we're saying, hey, run this function. All right, so if I go back to the other one real quick and we refresh it, there it is. Hi, I'm JavaScript. And that is bothering me that I have like bad English things in here because I don't know how to English. But when I see little things that bother me, they bother me. All right, so if I refresh this again, there it is. Hi, I'm JavaScript. Now, there's one more part to the function that I want to talk about today. There's other couple pieces that we're not covering right now, but there's definitely one more that I want to cover. There is a way to provide information to the function so that it knows what to do. So for example, I might create a function called make a sandwich. And then I might provide what type of sandwich, a turkey sandwich, a chicken sandwich, a PB&J. And there's a way for us to pass that information into a function so it can have some contextual knowledge of what we want it to do. So I'm going to take this piece here. Now this piece, we've been calling it a string. You've heard that a few times, but we're going to just take this piece of information. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put it down here in the logger. This is what we refer to as an argument or a piece of information for the function to consume and use it as contextual knowledge. So I'm going to come back up here, and I don't paste it in there, but I give whatever's in there like a name to reference it. So I'm going to call it str for string. That's just short for string. And I'm also going to put it in here, str. So what happens is logger gets called, and we give it this piece of contextual knowledge, which comes in here. So I'm just going to put a little note here. str is equal to that string. So then it will console log out that string down here gets passed in and it's using it. This is a reference. This is a variable. Okay, and this is a new term that you might be hearing. We're going to talk about how to make these and use them even more, but this is a way that they get created for us to use and reference other pieces of code. So we're passing it in here, and then it's coming through here to here. So let's go see it happen real quick on the other tab. So if I refresh it, here it is. It's showing up. And I can change it just to make sure you guys know I'm not joshing you. Hi, I am all the JavaScript. Ha 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 ha. All right, so if we refresh this, there it is. It's updated because it's changed. I changed it. So that's going through that flow. If this is making sense to you, if you can see that this guy right here, got passed in here. Now we've just given it a name to reference it, and we're passing in a reference that then is able to say this is what it is. If you're making that connection, awesome. If you're not, be patient. You'll make the connection eventually. And if you don't, then maybe development's not for you. But this concept took me several months as a developer to really let it sink in and understand. So if this is coming to you, awesome. It's because I know how hard it is and I taught you in an easy way, or you're really smart, or I don't know. If you're not getting it, I've taught you in a horrible way and I'm sorry. But that is how that's working, right? And also, if you're not getting it, maybe you just need some patience. Maybe you're like me and just take some time for it to sink in. So that is that piece right there. That is how that flow works. Now, last thing that we want to do is I want to click the button and I want it to run this function. So what I can do is say on click. This is another attribute in the HTML world. And it helps link up functions that we've created. So I'm going to put an equal sign here. I'm going to put quotes, and I'm going to say, I want you, when you get clicked, to call the logger function with I was clicked. Now you'll notice I used a single quote in here because we're already in a double quote. And so if I used a double quote, it would exit the string and it would cause breaking things. So if you're doing this and you're finding it's not working, double check your quotes. Also, if I put double quotes in here, you can see that it looks different and something's wrong. And in fact, there's even a little red squiggly line here trying to say, so this didn't look right, something went wrong. All right, so if I undo it, then it looks different and it's not complaining. There's no little red squiggly line. All right, so I'm going to save this. Fingers crossed that this works, but I have a feeling that we have failed miserably. Here we go. I'm going to refresh this page. We get the hi, I am JavaScript. I click the button. Yes! Yes, it worked. Yes. Oh, yes, crushing it. Okay, so if I just click this button, you just see it's incrementing. I was clicked, I was clicked, I was clicked, I was clicked, I was clicked. I'm being clicked. And we clicked it a whole bunch. All right? And that's it for today. That's it. So again, today's quick recap. We learned about attributes in HTML. We learned how to use an attribute, the class one specifically, to style our components so that we can reuse styles easily and not have a whole bunch of extra styles. We also learned how to make a JavaScript function and learned that we can pass in an argument into it and use it so that we can use the same logger function, which does a console.log, and pass in different contextual information for it to do something with. Cool beans. So awesome. All right, so let's go back to our Hangout screen, and we'll just chat for just a second and wrap this video up. All right, guys, again, HTML, awesome. CSS, awesome. JavaScript, starting to get a little bit harder. Okay. But we're getting there. We're building foundational pieces that hopefully you can build off of and get going and get somewhere. Our dice rolling app, as we start coming into the next phases, we're actually going to start doing stuff now. Like now we're going to actually take the information from an input because we clicked the button. We'll go get the information and find out what happened. So we're going to start spending a little bit more time in JavaScript, a little bit less time in the HTML and CSS world. But we will spend some time eventually to really clean it up and make the app look and feel good. Look and look nice and feel good. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll do that. So anyway, keep at it. Um, I'm not going to give a lot of stretching homework opportunities at this point. I just don't feel like we're ready for a homework piece yet. But we're getting close. We're getting close. So again, keep playing with these things. I mean, if you want a little bit of homework in between, like if you want to do something before you start the next episode, maybe do some more styling. Play around with it a bit. Choose different colors. Make it your own. Make it feel like your own. That's what I would do. But we'll definitely spend some time focusing on that near the end. I like to focus on the functionality, make sure it works before it looks good. Because even if it looks good, what good is it if it doesn't work? So keep at it, keep coding, have some fun. We'll see you guys in the next episode.